All right. Good Saturday morning to the hobby. Hobby Hotline is back this morning, episode 310 to be exact. This is our last Bench Clear Media, Facebook, Twitter episode before the National, which is taking place in Cleveland this year. All three of the hosts on the screen today are planning to be there, and many of you probably in the chat room as well. We're going to talk about that. We'll lead into that. We got a couple other stories, not as big as the National, but kind of the tackle. But joining me, go clockwise, Mr. Rookie Card Specialist, Victor.
Morning, gentlemen.
And Arthur, collector, hobbyist, Arthur. And below us, only on screen, Dr. James Beckett.
Glad to be here as always. Thanks, John and Victor.
All right, guys. We'll start out with, I guess it is a big story, but, PSA has announced they are going to do grading comic books. Obviously, that is something that CGC and other companies are already do as part of their repertoire. I'm not a comic guy. I did collect them as a young kid, and then when I had my store, there was 2 or 3 years where we did carry, went into like a little bit of the comic books, but I'm definitely not a comic book expert. I'll start with Dr. Jim. During your Beckett days, was this something, in the grading, was this something ever entertained then or not necessarily, for you in your company?
Well, when we started out, we were mainly sports. There are some sports comics, but when I was a kid, people either collected cards or they collected comics. They always had a predominant favorite, and I was always a sports guy. So, but later, after I've sold the company, they did acquire a comic book grading service, supposedly one of the top ones. So there's big. It's very difficult, guys, to grade comics because you've got to grade it. You got to look at every page. It's not like the front and the back and the surface. And the way they look at restorations, it's a completely different mindset. And the way they look at improving or pressing, all those things. So it's a different animal, but there's money to be made, I think. So Collectors is moving toward a new business that probably will be good for them.
Victor, your thoughts? What's your take? Were you a collector as a kid? Do you still, maybe you don't, do you collect now? Is it something that, because it's PSA grading it, would that change your perspective on it, or your thoughts overall here?
Yeah, I did collect comic books and sports cards as a kid, but not as an adult. Kind of stopped with the comic books. Now I have been collecting Sports Illustrated magazines now for a few years, and this whole deal has me really intrigued for several reasons. Number one, they're not going to start submissions until 2025. I don't know if everybody was aware of that, but it's not something they're going to roll out right away. Next is that they're going to be providing pressing for the services, which is, if I'm being a little cynical, it is a little ironic being that we had that with the whole cleaning of cards fiasco that we had a couple months back, but more importantly, like CGC, what is this going to do to CGC? Now, I do know that I have a stack of Sports Illustrated magazines that I've been wanting to send, but I haven't sent because the current status of CGC, they have had a lot of issues here recently. They can't seem to catch up, and that has limited me from sending anything to them. So I don't know it's probably going to hurt them, I think, but it might help them as far as alleviating some of the constant pressure of submissions. I don't know, but I think this will be very, very popular for PSA. This is going to be just another wheel in the spoke for them, and I think it's a great move. Personally, I've always asked myself, why doesn't PSA do comic books and magazines? Here they are.
Yeah, and obviously with SGC under the Collectors Universe umbrella, we'll see what happens there, if anything, when it comes to comic books. My guess is probably not. But yeah, it'll be interesting. You make a good point, Victor. Like, will this cut into CGC's market share? I haven't done anything with comic books in 30 years, 20, 30 years. You know, is alteration in comic books like accepted, or is it like cards where we sort of frown upon it? I don't know. I don't know if we have any comic book experts in the room that can kind of, or what the temperature is with that. Is that something that the grading card companies that do comics, like in PSA's case, have to be aware of, and they'll have those people in place. I'm sure they'll have specialists that know the comic book industry and all that it entails. For me, I think I love comic books as a kid. I don't know if this is a reason why a lot of people don't continue with comic books. Just the space factor, the fact that they take up so much space. I had them in boxes in the corner of my room, and that corner of the room got less navigational because those boxes started piling up, and so eventually I did sell my comic book collection just because of the space it takes up. Where cards obviously have a smaller footprint. Victor, you said you collected. Dr. Beckett, was that a factor in whether you do it now or not?
Too late for me to start, guys. I got plenty of cards that I'm trying to slog through. So
Yeah,
it takes a lot of room, and it's but I think when I had one of my episodes with Brian Gray, he was, this a few months ago, he was talking about kind of the two-tiered system that he thought comics was using, that there's grades where it'll indicate whether it was restored or not restored. So he was suggesting that might be a way for cards to grade if something's altered, but it's altered and now it looks like a 9. Well, I think he was saying the grade that comic books was already doing that. So they'll give you the grade, but they'll mention that it has been restored, as opposed to not restored with some great grade. But comic books were intended to be read. Also, one of the guys I interviewed was talking about like a QR code where even though the book would be sealed, you could read the book, or you could you could click on something, and if you wanted to virtually read the pages, you could. In fact, the guy who was doing encapsulating vinyl, record albums. So he'd provide a digital copy of the music, but he'd seal your album.
Yeah, that would be something my son would be interested. He actually collects vinyl, so I'm sure he can. I'll have to ask him about that if he knows about that. Comment from Frank Giastella, who says, restoration is accepted in the comic book world. And like you said, Dr. Beckett, they were meant to be read. I remember as a kid, those things were in my back pocket. I was throwing them around, trading with friends, giving them, hey, you got to read this issue, and we weren't thinking, financially or monetarily. Again, this is the late 70s, early 80s. So for me, they just got too big and too cumbersome. And I was a sports kid and a sports fan. And so I stayed with the cards, and comic books didn't make the cut. I got a feeling that's probably a lot of people's story. So, that's mine. A couple comments before we move on. Classic card restoration is called Restomod. That's the way it is sold, not as original. I'm going to encapsulate it. It's called cards out the same way on the labels. Comic registry. Are we going to get a comic registry? And like you said, Dr. Mookie Chilson, like you said, Doctor, comic books were invented to be read. That's how I feel too. Too much amazing content between the covers. It gets lost in those slabs. And we forget, we talk about card art, right? Comic art. You have some of the greatest artists in those industries that are doing those illustrations. And so when you seal that, I get it. You're not going to be able to see those unless you print, a copy where you can look at the art or buy an art print to put on a wall. So it'll be like Victor says. This is about a year away. I thought it was a couple months, so I stand corrected. So
No, and
they're
I
going to
think
get all. Go ahead.
I think it's similar to like cards. I think a lot of times we like neglect or don't pay too much attention to the back of the card. But I really appreciate what's on the back of the card, and a lot of
Yep.
times we just focus on the front of the card. But I want to, John, I don't know, did we talk about Fanatics and PSA partnership last week?
I wasn't on the show last week,
Okay,
so
I don't remember, but I think that's
we
something
can you can touch on it. Yeah,
yeah, that's something that's pretty interesting that has happened in the past week is the partnership. And I just really, guys, the business execution of PSA has been very, very interesting when I look at it in hindsight. When I first heard the news of, when we all heard the news of Fanatics coming in a few years ago, and we were kind of like speculating, man, how's this going to look? This is a game changer, man. In hindsight now, the one that has been the big game changer here is PSA. I mean, just the business execution of what they're doing with eBay and with Fanatics, and it's like this is PSA is becoming the powerhouse here, not so much Fanatics or eBay, and I think it's pretty interesting in the grand scheme of things. This to me is big headline news. What is going on here? And then they, a couple of days later after that, they released the information about grading comics. So it's like, man, PSA is really coming in here like a locomotive per se.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been the trend, right? We've seen collabs, acquisitions, mergers, and I think PSA, Nat Turner, and his crew are just trying to stay ahead of the curve. I mean, you can even include the SGC acquisition. I know it's collectors, but again, same
the timing
same
on that.
Yeah. So and they're probably not done. The gears are probably still turning behind the scenes there as well. And my fear, and I've said this on my show and on other shows, is I don't want to see a card come. We've heard Fanatics want to get into the grading side of the hobby. From a selfish and moral perspective, I don't want to see that. I don't want a card company grading their own products. I think that's a conflict of interest. Yes. They did, rumor has it, they did try to acquire SGC. That obviously did not happen, and everyone generally knows my relationship with them. Had that happened, hypothetically, that would have ended my relationship with SGC, unfortunately, because I just couldn't support, a conflict of interest. As much as I like SGC, that would have been a deal breaker for me on a personal level. So I'm, selfishly, I'm glad it didn't happen. I've heard other people echo those sentiments. Again, real quick, Dr. Jim, as someone who's come from the grading side, or that was one part of the empire you built. Your thoughts if Fanatics eventually does acquire whether another grading card company and kind of throw their hat in that arena? Like, what are your thoughts? Is that good, bad? Would it bother you like it would bother me, or not necessarily?
It would have bothered me decades ago. I think that now, basically, these are brands that are very strong. They have a brand identity. And if that brand identity does not include integrity, then conflicts of interest are a big deal. But if they do realize that if they have a lack of integrity in any one of their portfolio companies, it reflects on all of them. In other words, when PSA is getting into comic books, they need to do it right. And I believe they will do it right. But if they did it badly, it would reflect on their whole business. If Fanatics bought a grading company that was suspect and not good quality, it would drag down their whole brand. It would cause doubt in everything they're doing. And so I think if they do, they'll be very careful. And John, you're your intentions, your thoughts are correct. There is a potential conflict of interest, but sometimes businesses lean into it and say, we are going to be so transparent, we're going to be so careful that we're going to be above board about all this. We're going for it, but we're going to make sure that the right hand doesn't affect the left hand when you have these different businesses. And really, grading is partly about this year's cards, but in a huge way about previous cards that have already been produced. So it's not just these cards.
And you make a great point. I think that, they will try to do it better, but, I think sometimes I think you'll agree, Dr. Jim, that sometimes that's easier said than done. You can go in with that perspective or approach, but, the people are with the torches at the gate waiting for like one little mistake, right? The first thing that's questionable, that's going to, how this social media and this hobby works, it's going to be blown up, sometimes out of proportion and not even fairly, right? And so that's the arena you're participating in. And so unfair or fair, that's just kind of par for the course, especially in a hobby that's growing, getting even more mainstream than it already was. So yeah, I want to post this comment because Clone Trooper says the one thing I worry about as a comic grader is I hope they don't use the inferior cloudy plastic that they use for their card slabs. CDC uses crystal clear slabs for all of the things that they grade. And so that's another perspective, right? Is they're going to be critiqued on the materials they use. We always do that with we always, I like this slab better than this slab. This slab's thicker and more protected. This one's more transparent and see-through. I like this flip better than the plain red and white one. Whatever the arguments are, everyone has, right? Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, as they say. So that's going to come up, right? When PSA finally starts rolling out these graded comic books, is what materials they use and how do they match up to, in this example, CDCs and that sort of thing. Forget about the grading or how they're doing on the grading scale. Even just the aesthetics of what they're doing are going to be reviewed, and they're going to get a report card on that. So it's going to be interesting to see, like Victor says, in 2025 and who knows what between now and then, maybe another company throws their hat in that arena, in that niche as well. All right, guys, I've been in the hobby 40 years. You guys been in the hobby the same or longer. This one, just when I thought I saw everything, right? CAT scans, not just for humans, I think is the headlines now. Reports coming out that hobbyists, dealers, collectors are utilizing CAT scanners to search packs in boxes to see maybe if there's a logo man or some kind of bigger hit in these boxes and cases. This is crazy to me. I don't know. I've never been in the market for a home CAT scanner, so I do not know what these things cost. My wife is a nurse. I know they're probably not cheap. Your Ricoh card scanner will be a lot less money than a CAT scan machine. So, people are, I don't know a lot of these stories I read, guys, people are utilizing ones. They don't even have to buy them. They're utilizing them at work, after hours, and that sort of thing. So it's not even the cost prohibitive. It's just taking advantage of one in the workplace to do shady, hobby practices. This is a story that, surprises me. And then I read someone told me that this has been going on a long time. It's just now making more of the, coming to the surface. Obviously, I don't have to say I'm not supportive of this. It's sad, but as we all know, right, anywhere that there's money to be made and shortcuts to be taken, that's going to happen. And so, I'll start with Dr. Jim. Have you ever heard of this prior to recently? And just what are your, how does this hit you as a long time hobbyist?
Well, I mean, if you have a card, you can look at the card. You can feel the card. If it's just one card in a pack, you can feel the thickness. So whether it's a CT scanner or anything else, the smaller the quantity, the easier it is to see some irregularity. But you've already seen the card companies put in decoys and things like that. So I believe that now this is in the light, that people they're talking about this, the card companies will respond. If it's a 1 pack per box, I don't know to what extent that's searchable inside the sealed box of 1 pack of 5 cards. Are they looking for thickness? Are they looking for some metal? Are they looking for some I don't know that you can search for fabric, but if it's the density of materials. Like I say, now that it's out, I think that there'll be countermeasures. And I will say this: if it's a box, if it's an upper deck hockey box, it's got 12 packs of 12 cards and possibly a Connor Bedard Young Gun. Well, good luck with your CT scanner.
Yeah, but you might be able to see the acetate version, which is numbered to 10 potentially. So that could be in there. I mean, I'm sure it's difficult. Sure.
I'm not sure of the specificity of what they have. If it's perfect, then again, like I said, there'll be countermeasures. So I'm glad this is coming out. We'll see.
So I'll get to you, Victor. Abel in Vegas says the machine cost $1,200. I would have guessed more, but so shows you what I know. I'm not a medical supply salesman. That price seems like someone wants to do this in the comfort of their home and lay out $1,200. I guess you could buy one. Victor, your thoughts on this whole?
Yeah, this was a new one on me. I'm gonna push back a little bit on this one though. I think it's the way I've seen it explained is that it's hard to make out if it's a pack. Okay. I don't know if it's because of the wrapping that's on it or because there's so many cards inside of a pack. I heard it's more for like the Flawless, where I think the cards come in like a holder, like a mini, what do they call that? Mag
type.
Right. And so I think it's very limited on what you can use it on. But then number two, I'm hearing a lot of feedback, well, what are they going to do about it? And I just, that kind of irritates me a little bit because you want the protection. You want the card manufacturers to be responsible for the moral failures of others. And it's just like wherever way that you can make a buck, people are going to try to scam and try to figure out a way to beat the system per se. And so I don't know, just those are moral failures of people, and we're blaming that on the card manufacturers. I think it's a little misplaced because this is just out there for me. To put a box under a CT scanner is like next level of pack searching. I mean, this is the ultimate pack searching, and I don't know. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, it's the next thing to having Superman X-ray vision, right? It's the closest it's the closest you're gonna get. And like you said, good point with the Flawless product, which uses those magtites and just kind of puts them in cutouts. And I agree with you. It's not Panini making a mistake. It's just unscrupulous people finding ways, right? But that being said, like I won't blame, but you kind of pivot, right? If you're them and you're making Flawless product, maybe future incarnations of the product can move those magtites into individual boxes. You can keep the cutouts, put them into a box where they're harder to see what they are, and that sort of thing. Maybe cost will be an issue, but you can kind of, cost prohibitive. Do something like that.
Right.
Just kind of, it's like grading card companies, right? They have to stay ahead of the people who are altering and trimming and coloring and making fakes, right? They have to use tactics to. It's kind of a chess game, right? It's your move, now we move, and so same thing I think with card manufacturers here is I think, and I'm sure they do. I mean, this is not new territory. Maybe a CAT scanner's new territory, but pack searching, weighing boxes, weighing packs, those kind of things have all been around for years. This is just the latest wrinkle, if you will. And card companies have always been aware of this and probably trying to stay ahead of the curve. We've seen, dummy cards, right? Enter, where you think, oh, I got something big, and then it's the blank card that you'll in turn use to ship and buffer shipments when you send cards. That's at least what I do. So this is just the latest wrinkle, but I just had to shake my head when this news story broke, and now I just say to myself, what's going to be next, right? I mean, people opened boxes and resealed them. Now you don't have to, and like you said, Victor, in certain products, this is not 100% foolproof. There's some stuff that the CT scanner is not going to aid you in, but in some products it will. And those folks, there was a comment, I think, from Abel that said, how do we know for certain breakers aren't using this on flawless products? It seems they get some of these big hits too much comparative to ratio. So it definitely raises a lot of question marks.
And Abel makes a great comment there. Like they can put a wrapper that has lead on it to kind of prevent that kind of thing. But what do you think? Who's going to absorb the cost of that wrapper with lead on it? We're going to have to
consume it.
You know what I mean?
Yep. This is why I'm glad I'm not really someone that opens as much wax as the old John Newman used to, so I can avoid. This doesn't really directly affect me per se, but it's still, we care about the hobby. We're passionate about the hobby, right? We don't want to see anybody take one on the chin, and that's why we have to kind of, talk about that. So, I'm more. I think I speak for most of us, at least on the screen. I think we buy more cards than wax, right? But it still, it affects the hobby, how the hobby looks, and that sort of thing. And so we have to talk about it. Any kind of before we move on to National Talk, any last kind of comments on this? Go ahead, Dr. Jim.
Guys, I think this is we're missing an aspect of this that could be a silver lining, and that is that if you're just a random collector, you're not going to go to your medical office to get a single box or pack. You would have already bought it. Okay, so who are the people that have all the packs and boxes? It's the breakers. It's card shops. Yeah. And so if you're a huge breaker, then this technology could assist you if it really works, because now if the machine's thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars, but some of these breakers are doing millions of dollars worth of business. So if anybody was going to utilize this technology and exploit it, it'd be a big breaker. Okay, so now the main criticism of these big breakers is they get all the good stuff. And so then this technology, if it really worked, is going to help them identify which boxes, which packs, what boxes have the really good cards. And so now they're in a situation where if I'm a breaker and I know there's a $1 million card in this box, I think I'll just keep that. I don't think I'm going to open it, or I'll make sure somebody that buys it is my buddy, because I'm going to cut them in.
And me and you, Dr. Jim, we're going to sell it and split the millions of dollars.
And I believe that will be discoverable. It's kind of
like a triple logo man. We've seen what triple logo
man. So if but again, I believe that the breakers get product, and for them to go through it, like I said, they would want to set the boxes aside that had the really good stuff in it and make sure that was treated differently. They'd have to be surreptitious about it, but they'd either make sure that the break spots were filled with their friends. And now that's a conspiracy that's hard to keep quiet, or they just don't even do it. So if we see the number of big cards dropping off from some of these large breakers who just happen to live near a medical complex or something, then we can get suspicious. But like I said, the integrity of a breaker, they've weathered the storm, some of them, of having suspicious kind of things. But over time, their business reputation is sort of based on how many good things they pull, but then they're just pulling it for somebody and it's going to somebody else. My word, they keep it for themselves. They keep it for themselves, which is what happened one time.
Yeah. It's crazy. And if a breaker was to be caught, let's say red-handed or with their hand in the cookie jar, I would hope that the card manufacturers would obviously do the right thing and stop supplying them product to continue those illegal acts and
for example, a large breaker gets 100 cases of a certain product. There are 50 cases or 10 cases of a certain product. If I were the card company, I'd want to know that those products were being broken. So if they've got their CT scanner and they've got their 10 cases and they scan the 10 cases and they find, hey, one of these is not like the others, we're just going to set this one aside. So if they got 10 cases and they only sold 9 and they held back one for their own personal opening, perhaps, that would be suspicious behavior. So the card companies need to be tracking, we got these cases to these breakers, they broke them, and they made public what they got, and that's the audit. If every case is opened and it's visibly evaluated by the public.
So you're saying Topps would know, like, hey, the triple logo man is headed this direction, and if it never surfaces, that would raise a red flag to Topps, like this breaker is not doing stuff above board.
I can't go that level. I can't go that far because I don't think Topps knows who got the case, the best case hits. Okay, so we're talking about case hits, or but really 6-figure and up cards. So I don't think Topps knows that. Like I said, every logo man is not equal. So they won't know which one necessarily. But if the breakers figure out that, I'm not going to open this product because I think it's got something big in it, that'd be bad. So, but then they'd be opening less. They'd get less big cards, and then their reputation would take a hit.
Yeah. Victor, any kind of thoughts?
No.
So what about, like, when we see like a award show, right? There's an independent auditor that's tabulated the votes for like the Oscars or the Grammys. What about, I know this sounds crazy, what about that on the card level where an auditor not affiliated with Topps, a separate company, knows where certain things went and then just kind of keeps tabs on it themselves and then only reports back to Topps when they feel like something's not above board, like, hey, we need to take a look at this. Is that something potentially we can see?
Rich Klein, I don't know if he was talking to Victor or whoever he's talking to, but he mentioned Diogenes, looking for the honest man. John, that won't work. I mean, basically, what we need to be doing is not auditing cards that are in the packs. We need to be auditing the results of the openings. And so if there's 100 cases that we can see that get opened and they're visibly, the digital record is there, and you can see out of those 100 cases, where did the big cards fall? And if they all fell in the big breakers, unless the big breakers had the lion's share of those openings. So the antidote for this thought that boxes are loaded is more public openings of boxes and cases that are recorded on YouTube or any other place where The audit could be, I've looked at all these videos and I've found that the best cards fall all over the place. They don't fall only in this part of the country. They don't fall only with these breakers. But you can't audit by opening up boxes and then resealing them. I mean, that's just not. And I don't like the idea. I like the idea of auditing after the fact. And what we're doing is we're doing a form of that without doing the full analysis. We're just remembering that, oh, you know what? Those big breakers, they're always touting that they got these big cards. Well, sometimes somebody that opens a box on their own, they're not necessarily going to tout it. But the breaker, it's their business to tout it. So they have an outsized megaphone exaggerating how many great things. It's a great rumor that they can fan the flames of. Hey, we're a big breaker. We get all the big stuff. So, but if you analyze all the openings, that's what I'm saying. Not open them and then put them back in, or somebody knows. If somebody knows, anybody could know. So I just think let's open up the boxes. Let's see where the big hits fall and make sure they're falling randomly after the fact. And if they're not, that company is in deep trouble.
Yeah. No, I agree. But, anything that can protect the consumer, I'm in favor of. I know there's costs involved. It's not my money, so it's easy for me to spend Topps and Panini's money for them. A couple of last comments. I won't put them on the screen. They're too far up in the chat room. Someone corrected that a CAT scan machine costs $80,000, and a comment was made, if you're buying one for $1,200, it's probably leaking lots of radiation, and your future kids are going to look a little funny. So a couple funny comments, but yeah, I thought $1,200 was kind of low for a CAT scan machine. But all right, guys, we're 4 days away. Wednesday, the National, right? I call it the Super Bowl of the hobby. It's in Cleveland this year. Probably for who knows when it'll get back to Cleveland, as I think it's in Chicago the next 3 years. I've never been to Cleveland ever for anything, so this will be my first time in Cleveland. It'll be my first time in Cleveland for the National. I was talking to Victor before we started the show. Same on his part. Dr. Jim, you've been to every National that's ever happened, including prior Cleveland ones. For those that have never been to a Cleveland National, is it going to be different than maybe Nationals we're used to, or kind of, obviously we got now new leadership as well. That's a factor in that as well, but kind of speak to the Cleveland National, if you will.
There's three things. One is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If you've never been to Cleveland, you got to go there. Second thing is the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton. That's not far away. And the third thing is that suggests that the National in Cleveland is going to be really strong, is that when you think of a vintage card show, you think of Strongsville. And it's been that way for a long time. I mean, there's other good vintage shows, but that was kind of a purely vintage show for many years. Lots of veteran collectors in that area. So it's going to be great, but it's going to be different just because of the logistics, as I've said. It's going to be hard getting around from your hotel and back, and there's no walking around. It's a couple miles, and you can't even go a straight line because everything's fenced in and there's a lot of concrete. And you're going to feel like you're just coming in right after World War II, John.
Well, listen, I'm driving
in a field with fences and concrete and stuff. It's like an abandoned airport hangar.
Well, it's probably not that much different from Syracuse, just bigger, just a bigger city. Listen, I'm driving. I know you guys are both flying in. I've already said this. I'll reiterate it. I'll have my car, so if I can help, getting people from point A to point B, that doesn't throw off my schedule, I'm more than happy to do it. It's been done for me when I've flown in, so I always try to reciprocate that sort of favor. I say that to the whole chat room, but my car only seats about six folks, so it's a Sportage. But listen, if we can squeeze you in there, I'd be more than happy to help. I know what hotel. I think I'm a few miles from the IX Center at the hotel that myself and Danny are staying at, but I don't have a problem. And Danny's driving too, so in a sense, we'll have two vehicles potentially. And I'll speak for him and volunteer him as well. I don't think he has a problem like swinging by and grabbing someone on the way and that sort of thing. I'm looking forward to it. A lot of events, right? I'm going to I've been to the Football Hall of Fame already a few years ago when Bettis. I went when Bettis got inducted. I'm a big Steelers guy. So I've been to Canton. I've never been to Rock and Roll Hall. This morning, Dr. Jim, I think you'd be proud of me. I bought my ticket for Wednesday morning. So I'll be attending. Real quick tip. I know this is not hobby related, but since we segued into the Rock and Roll Hall really would like you to buy your tickets online ahead and kind of state what day and time you're attending. I think they have some sort of traffic control where they don't want 2,000 people at one time and then 400 at another time. I think I'm guessing that's why they ask you what time do you plan on attending and what day. So I'm going Wednesday morning. I told them that, bought my ticket. It's $37 after taxes for those wondering what it costs to attend the Rock and Roll Hall. And so I'll be going Wednesday morning. I'm assuming, Dr. Jim, you've already been.
Yeah, I've been, but if you haven't been, I think there's most of the people in the hobby love music, and it's just a class. I mean, it says Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but there's a wide range of music taste. But one point I was going to make, I don't think I've said this before, but the hotels are all 2 or 3 miles away. But I don't think I've emphasized that they're really, because I'm not sure exactly where you're staying. I'm not even sure I can't remember which one I'm in, but they're kind of clustered. So even the logistics are difficult, but you might be in the hotel that's 100 yards away from my hotel, which is another 100 yards away from Victor's hotel, because they're just like a row of them or kind of around the corner, and there's different clusters of 5 or 6 of them all together. And so the shuttles will pick up on the half hour or whatever, every 15 minutes. And they'll pick up and they'll rotate around. So, the national provides for that. But if the hotels were far apart, no, they're just far from the venue, but they're close together for the most part.
Yeah, that's nice. That way, if someone's driving, like in my case, you can kind of make the sweep, grab people, and then head to the convention center, which is kind of what we plan to do if anyone needs it. One last question with the Rock and Roll Hall. If it's like you've been there, will this be something you go to this year, or it's kind of like, hey, been there, done that? I can go to the Baseball Hall of Fame every year. There's obviously new inductees, new exhibits. I'm sure the Rock and Roll Hall is similar. Like anytime you're in Cleveland, do you always go or not necessarily?
Newsflash, my favorite place to be is at the card show, guys. I'm not even going to take in a ball game. I mean, when I'm there for the cards and my buddies and my new friends. Yeah. And I did go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a pretty long time ago with a bunch of card guys, and we had a great time. But I've been there and done that. Now I'm here for the show. I'm here for the show. Yeah. But I'm also not getting a Wednesday afternoon. So if I were there Wednesday morning, that'd be an option.
Yeah, well, I'm getting there Tuesday. I'm getting there Tuesday afternoon. So I'll have a day to decompress. Wednesday we'll knock off the Rock and Roll Hall and then get to the show. And like you said, it's showtime. I am going to, let me say this right, a Guardians game versus the Tigers. That will be actually Wednesday night. Wednesday night is going to be pretty busy. You got the Rock and Roll Hall for me and Danny, Rock and Roll Hall, the National, and then the Guardians game in the evening. There's also a corporate party that I've lukewarm committed to, saying, let them know depending on what time we get out of the Guardians game, I will try to make it. So Wednesday night, I'm going to be tired, I'm sure, and then get some sleep and get to doing it Thursday. Victor, you've changed your schedule. You're going to be there a little bit longer than initially thought. I'm glad to hear it. We have a hobby hotline dinner that you can now attend. That's awesome. What being your first time in Cleveland, not your first time obviously at a national, some of the things you're looking forward to, probably very similar to most people, but still on a personal level.
Yeah, I was going to drive in, but I'm not a big fan of driving. It's like a 5.5 hour drive, and the car situation and here at home, and I was just like, I'm gonna fly, and it's I was able to get a flight round trip for about $230. It's a 1 hour flight, and I'm like, I'm just gonna do that. But I'm gonna go. I was started off Wednesday to Saturday. I was invited to a few things on Saturday, and it's like, man, if I stick to my schedule, I'm not going to be able to go to any of these things. So I changed my flight to Sunday. I'm going to come back Sunday instead, and I'm really looking forward to really the networking of things, hanging out with friends. That's going to be my main thing. Budget wise, it's not as good as it has been in the past years, but it's going to be enough. So always looking forward to upgrading or adding to the set registries, because I'm more of a set registry guy when it comes to collecting. And then obviously, looking to allocate inventory to put in my eBay store, that kind of thing. So I have fun with the dollar boxes, and the $5 to $10 boxes is really the sweet spot for me. So that's what I really look forward to, because I usually have so much fun looking through those value boxes, and there's just some sweet stuff in there. And anytime I'm in that environment, man, it's like all of the world's problems just melt away when I'm going through those value boxes. And looking forward to that, because it's been a while.
Get in line.
No doubt. Yeah, I was going to say you're gonna have to fight off Dr. Jim. I know you guys are friends and get along, but dollar boxes, all bets are off. I've seen friendship end over dollar boxes. I'm kidding, obviously. Another event I'm looking for, Hobby Hotline on the main stage. That will be Thursday at 3 p.m. Cleveland time. On Saturday, Sports Card Nation will be doing live at 3 p.m. on Saturday. I've decided to donate that hour to Hobby News Daily to cover what we do there. I know, Victor, you're a part of both of those. So hope to see you on the main stage, Dr. Jim with Hobby Hotline. And I know you look at Hobby News Daily. So I always try to use that platform to, highlight some other people and share the stage with some other people that are doing great things as well. There's a lot of those in the hobby, and some of those positive things. You got the Diamond King movie premiere that I'll be attending. I believe that is Friday. If I don't have my calendar right out in front of me, I'm not going to pull my phone out. I think that's Friday after the show. I'm looking forward to that. I've had Dick Perez and Mark Evans on a few times, and sort of been involved in the early stages of that as a supporter of, like many others. I'll be in the credits there at the end and that sort of thing. So for me, I've talked about this, those Diamond Kings were, as a Brooklyn kid and a Tops being in my backyard, the Diamond Kings were the first thing that made me turn my head and consider another brand outside of Tops. And so I've told that to Mr. Perez, how that influenced my hobby experience, and to, much like meeting Dr. Jim and getting to meet him and knowing the importance on my hobby journey. And if you would have told younger John Newman that you were going to have these sort of relationships with these folks years later, I would have thought you were doing something illegal or taking something. And yet here, that's the fact. And I'm very blessed and privileged and I don't take that for granted. So that's another event. There are trade nights. I don't know. I'm not a trade night guys. I like Dr. Jim. I love cards like Victor, but I don't eat lunch. So I'm a guy that will just eat like a granola bar. I'll skip lunch, and then after the show, I got to keep this weight up. So I'm starving like Marvin. I got to have dinner. So with hobby friends. So we're still talking hobby, talking like, but I got to eat some. So I'm sort of not a trade night guy. I don't bring usually a ton of cards to like sell or trade. I'm more buying and that sort of thing. They're doing trade nights, as you guys know, and many in the chat room, differently this year. They're sponsored and they're going to be in-house. Is that something that interests you? You're going to attend? What's your take on those guys? Whoever wants to go first.
I'm interested. It's just I typically run out of gas by that late in the evening. That's the hard part for me, but I'm going to probably check out one of the nights, and that's going to be it for me, just to experience it.
I haven't figured out a way to be two places at once. And I'm supposed to be having dinner with some friends or some activity each of the evenings. And then to go back afterwards, I try to hit it hard in the morning when I get up. I don't mind being a little bit sleep deprived, but for the whole week, I really don't want to do that. So I don't think that we'll see. I don't think I'm going to do it this year. The fact that there's 3 nights, I don't know which night I should. I don't even know what I would bring or what I would trade or what I'd be looking for. It's not the way I hobby at this point. If I am going to do a trade night, it's going to be the Dallas I'll do one of the Dallas ones and try to get some sense of how I can have a good time and be a blessing to others. Maybe I can bring some stuff that because I don't usually like to sell or trade cards, but I like to buy. That might be something. So not this time, guys, for me.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Dr. Jim, I know some of the new leadership. I knew you knew the old leadership. What do you see for as someone who knows both sides of that coin, if you will? How do you think this transition goes? Is the national going to be like? Is it going to be? Are we going to see a different? Like, is it going to be a palpable difference? Like, if you didn't know that there was a leadership change, would you be able to tell? Like, if you weren't aware of that fact, will it be palpable on that level?
I'm not sure there'll be discernible differences with the consumers who are walking through the door. Again, Cleveland's a different venue, hadn't been there for a while. The dealers, on the other hand, they're kind of the bosses of the new regime. I mean, the dealers elect the board, which brings in the managing promoters. And so they work at their pleasure. And so I think that's where you'll see some differences. I think Rich and I have done some episodes on my podcast about just the way badges are going to be handled, the move in, the move out, that they're going to try to tighten up. Not that it was loose before, but this new regime is going to probably exercise some greater controls, and it's probably moving in the right direction in light of everything that's happened. And there'll be some grumbling maybe, but it's the way things need to go. We need better security.
Yeah, boy, we hope we don't see a repeat performance of what happened in Dallas. Obviously, we hope that thing gets resolved with the best possible outcome. There's talk that, like you said, some people splitting tables, those kind of, they're trying to do away with that, and I get that. If you want a table, you got to go through the proper procedures to try to get one, and so I think it's hard to track, right? If you had a table, Dr. Jim, Victor, what's to say I'm the help and you give me I get 1/3 of a showcase to put out my stuff. I don't know how you police that potentially, unless we're advertising that, like, wearing it on our forehead. I don't know, but It'll be interesting to see how security is, if any changes are there. I know whenever I go to the Heritage setup, those guys with the suits and their hands near their waistline, I'm always careful not to make any sudden twitches or moves, just in case. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see sort of post what happened in Dallas, like, sort of how that's handled, or they do a pretty good job already. You don't have to make a ton of changes on at least on that front. Victor, any thoughts when it comes to new
Yeah,
leadership?
I had some pushback on this on my last podcast episode. This really bothered me with what happened in Dallas, and not so much of the actual heist, but the criticism with the current state of security. We have high resolution camera footage of these guys. There's security police there, but what more do you expect these promoters to do? What are you expecting from these security guards or police officers who are there when you have hundreds, if not thousands, of people in the room? How can they keep their eyeballs on everything that's going on? It's impossible to put that task on a human being. But then to criticize the promoters, to me, the best security is me. I need to be responsible and take care of my own cards and be vigilant in my surroundings, and not do something stupid like leaving my box.
No, listen.
Unprotected.
Here, I second that. As a dealer myself, I don't have $2 million in inventory, truth be told. But you better believe if I did, that day I go to the bathroom, I'm emptying my showcase and taking that to the bathroom with me. Now I'm obviously kidding there, but man, that stuff I'd be in front of, or have some, staff where like, hey, I got to use the restroom, be right in front of this case. I think too, the other thing I thought about, with that too, is I wouldn't put that sort of inventory all in one case together. I would sort of, some of these go in this case, some of these go in this case, some of these go. That way, God forbid, even if one case somebody grabs it and runs, they're not getting all the big boy cards in one fail swoop. I guess it's easy for me to play armchair quarterback after the fact. I don't have $2 million. I've got expensive cards, but I don't got $2 million in cards at the shows. I do. But yeah, Victor, I'm glad you said that. I know sometimes someone say, oh man, you're being insensitive. No, it's just sort of common sense, man. You have that is a life-changing theft. Any theft is not good. It's no fun if it happens to you. I've had stuff taken from me at a show. Obviously nothing along those lines, but that is a life change, especially when you're full-time, right? This is what Ashish Jain does full-time. And that one is a hit right to the center of the bow. And so that was one of the, watching the video and like, man, it's just, you don't wish that on anybody, but like, man, I don't know. That stuff, I'd be handcuffed to my wrist. I almost feel like it'd be handcuffed.
You know what I've seen in the last couple of years at card shows, John? I've seen certain dealers that have a little GoPro camera set up on a tripod right behind him. You know what he's doing? He's being vigilant over his own inventory.
I have a dealer friend of mine that does that here at the Syracuse shows, which is obviously much smaller show than Dallas or the National. He sets up the GoPro, even if it's just a deterrent to someone thinking about it, right? Even it's like, hey, this home is protected by multiple secure. This location, smile, you're on camera.
But to expect Kyle, who's the promoter over there at Dallas, hey, Kyle, you're responsible for these 3,000 people. Make sure they don't steal anything. How do you expect him to do that?
Well, no, Kyle has more cameras than any other promoter.
Yeah.
He's in first place.
There was a ton of footage.
He has drones. He has cameras in every corner, in every room, and so he's already gone the extra mile But now it's being pointed out he's going to have to go the extra 2 miles or something. You go in the corner of the room, there's a video station there, kind of like a security station where they've got the big screen where they're watching all those
Yep.
those video feeds. So he takes it seriously, but this was a breach in a vulnerable time with people hanging around because there weren't as many people there when I wasn't there on that Sunday. So,
but maybe were you wearing a disguise? Let's see those cards behind you.
How about the tats?
So listen, I know, it's easy to play armchair dealer and say, man, I maybe I would have been more diligent, but I really I'm glad you said that, Victor, because I thought that, and I'm going to do a show where I talk from a dealer perspective about that, and I'm sensitive to someone that just got $2 million cards stolen from them. That I don't care who you are, that sucks, right? For lack of a better way to say it. But it's just like, man, when I saw that video, it's like, man, you're like, and again, this was a coordinated effort. This was a planned, scoped out thing. But still, like, man, I use the restroom at a show. One of my buddies comes over and mans my table. And I get in, get out, and get back to my table, and vice versa. When they go, I watch their stuff, and it's just, I talk to people, right? But I still don't let my guard down, or try not to let my guard down. But again, I don't have $2 million in cards at the show, and so hopefully this has a happy ending when all the smoke clears and dust settles and whatnot. So, Victor, I will put you on the spot. You wrote it before we kind of get out of here. You wrote a new book. Tell everybody what it's called, where you can get it, and also, is it something you're bringing to the show for people who are at the National who want to pick up a copy? Can they do that?
Yeah, thanks, John. This is a show about weekly hobby news, right? Well, this past Friday, my book was released by Amazon. I wrote a book called True Rookie Cards, and the subtitle is A Systematic Approach That Filters Through the Fluff So You'll Know Which Rookie Cards to Buy is the title of the book. It is available on Amazon.com only at the moment. I will not, unfortunately, have copies with me available at the National. As hard as I tried, the timeline of getting all of that logistically done was just impossible. So I will not have that at the National, but you can get it through Amazon.com. You can get it through my website. I know I have a lot of people requesting an autographed copy. I will not have my author's copies available for 3 to 4 weeks, is what Amazon is telling me. After that time, once I get my batch of books, then I'll be able to sell them through my website, and you can request an autographed version that way. But for now, Amazon.com, it's in every social media link that I belong to, and that's at true_RCS.
Awesome stuff. And listen, 2 of the 3 people on the screen are authors. I think it's apparent which 2 those are. They'll probably remain that way. I can write some essays and some columns and some articles, but I think that's my limit. I've been told I should write a book, but I don't think I could do it. So congratulations, very, very, very cool. And eventually, like you said, but you can still buy the book and listen, bring it to the next National and have Victor sign it in person, or get it through Victor, and I'm sure you'll set up all that as things get logistics get worked out.
Thank you to everybody in the chat for the well wishes. Thank you. I really appreciate it, you guys.
Yeah,
Victor.
All right. Any last comments before we call it a Saturday and get ready? I'm packed already, guys. I don't even have to pack. I packed Thursday. I packed Thursday night. So I'm not wearing for the next 4 days. I'm not wearing my favorite underwear that is in my suitcase. I'm assuming we all have favorite underwear we like more than other brands. So those are packed and ready for Cleveland. But I'll get by with the B team underwear in the meantime. But yeah, I'm packed. Listen, we're 4 days away. It's a fun week, but it's a fast week too. And real quick, one last thing on this, I'll direct to Dr. Jim. This will be the first national, Dr. Jim, that I'm actually going to be there on a Sunday. It's never worked out where I could stay and be there Sunday, whether it be a flight or my wife. When in Atlantic City, I drove, but my wife's like, we're leaving in the morning. I'm like, no, go to the beach. I'll go to the show one last time. And I got vetoed. And so this will be my first Sunday at the National. Any thoughts? Any different? Are people like having blowout sales? What's any temperature change on a Sunday in relatively to the other 4 or 5 days of the show?
Let me answer that in a way that one of the commenters said is that, where am I going to be on Sunday? Where am I going to be on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Actually, I don't know exactly in advance where I'm going to be each of those days. But Sunday is the most scrambling of the days because you're trying to fill in. But if people are looking for me, the Beckett booth, they generally, some of the guys that I've known for a long time would know where I might be or could contact me or text me or something. So, and then the other choice I start out at the Singles Club, plug for the Singles Club. So I'll be there probably Wednesday, possibly even Thursday. But then there are other places. And then Rich Klein, my wingman, will not be there. But Rich, somehow, the test will be this year if he knows where I am, even though he's not in the state. If he's still in Texas, but people can contact him to find out where I am, and he would know the answer because I don't know how he knows all the stuff he knows, but somehow Rich knows. So
he's the Secret Service. He's Dr. Jim Beckett's Secret Service agent. He knows where you are at all times.
The real Secret Service that really do their job. And but Sunday is I've made some deals on Sunday, but I'm limited by what I can carry, or there's some logistical concerns, but there's dealers willing to make. In fact, there's some booths that and you guys know from the bargain boxes is that the best deal on the bargain box is not going to be on Wednesday. It's going to be on Sunday. Now, it may be picked over, but they're going to be discounting more heavily toward the end. And that goes for everything, showcase cards as well.
Yep. Yeah, I'm hoping that, as a dealer myself, maybe me and Victor were talking, we'll get a couple deals for my inventory for the local shows. Here, we're getting a couple requests from the chat room to drop all our YouTube channels. We'll start with Vic. Go ahead, give that out.
I'm on YouTube. I am Victor, the rookie card specialist, or you can just go to true_RCS on any social media platform and I will pop up. Sunday, John, for me, I've been to a few. It's usually a sad day for me. Number one, by Sunday, I'm broke. But also when you start seeing the teardown happen, it's like, oh man, it's like the party's over, So Sunday has always been a little sad for me in that aspect.
Yeah, but then you count down, right? It's 365, then 364. The countdown begins again. Real quick, my YouTube, Sports Card Nation Network, Sports Card Nation Podcast. You search those, it'll come up. Dr. Jim, I know your content goes on YouTube as well. If you want to share,
same name. I'm just my name and Sports Card Insights. Victor, there's a difference between broke and out of cash.
That's true.
And so that's the issue for me. I'm not going to be broke, but I could run out of cash. And actually, that could be a good thing.
Yeah, true. On a Sunday.
All right, guys. Well, man, it's awesome. Just to get, not that I needed more to get more ramped up, but talking to you guys in the chat room, being 4 days away, it'll be the 4 days leading up to will go slow, and then the 5 or 6 days of the show will be a blur. And like Victor says, we'll be looking forward to the next one. So safe travels to you, Victor, Dr. Jim. everyone in the chat room that is going to show or traveling, safe travels to everybody. Look forward. I know I speak for you guys. Look forward to meeting a lot of folks that we maybe have never met or just see in online form for the first time, meeting them in person for the first time, or meeting them and seeing them and chatting with them again. So with that being said, that's going to do it. And we'll see ya next week, maybe in person. So there you go. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Vic.
And that's the way it's done.
Thank you, guys.